Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking two concepts that are absolutely foundational for mental fitness: meditation and mindfulness. We're going to strip away the mystery, figure out exactly how they work, where they overlap, and why they actually matter to your daily life. So, right out of the gate, we have to ask the big question: are meditation and mindfulness the exact same thing? Honestly, we hear these buzzwords everywhere, right? They're tossed around in wellness articles, corporate seminars, everyday conversations, and they're almost always used completely interchangeably. If you've ever felt kind of confused about the difference, your confusion is entirely valid. Because while they are deeply connected, they actually solve completely different problems for us. Now, what's really interesting here is how we can map this out. Think of it like a bustling market, a bazaar, and the roads surrounding it. The bazaar is a defined physical place you can enter and spend time inside. That's your meditation. It's like stepping into a dedicated enclosed container. Mindfulness, on the other hand, that's like navigating the roads in and around that market. It's the quality of attention you bring as you move through your experience, whether you're inside that container or out on the open road. And that brings us to a foundational distinction that completely changes how we view these practices. Look, meditation is something you do on purpose. It's a deliberate practice with a defined time, a defined method. Mindfulness, though, is something you bring to whatever is already happening right now. It's totally portable. Once you wrap your head around this, you stop asking which one is better, and you start asking, okay, what is each one actually for? So the crucial point is that human attention is a highly limited resource. The mind just isn't built to hold everything at once. Think of your attention like a flashlight in a totally dark room. Wherever you point that beam, that specific area becomes crystal clear. But everything outside of it, it stays vague and shadowed. Without training, that flashlight just kind of jerks around, reacting to every little noise in the dark. Both of these practices are fundamentally about training the core engine of your mind to steer that flashlight beam intentionally, rather than just letting it get yanked around by every passing thought. And this brilliantly illustrates how we actually train that flashlight. Imagine learning to balance a tray of glasses. At first, you're only going to figure out that balance when you are standing perfectly still, right? You need to be in a protected space where you can observe the wobble without dropping the whole shebang. Well, that is meditation. Then, eventually, you start carrying that tray while walking, turning corners, dealing with everyday distractions. That is mindfulness. You train stable attention in a protected space first, and then you carry it right out into the chaos of motion. But here's a really surprising fact we have to acknowledge. Awareness and reactivity are absolutely not the same thing. You can be fully aware of something and still react terribly to it. I mean, have you ever known exactly why you were anxious? You recognize the anxiety, yet your body still tightened up and your thoughts still raced? Yeah, me too. This proves that awareness alone just isn't enough to stop a bad reaction. The mind doesn't just need awareness, it needs actual workable space. To really understand that space, think of your mind like a car's brake system. The second the road changes in front of you, you need time to register it before the car responds. If your brake system is weak or shot, the car lurches forward way too far and, well, you crash. But if it's well-tuned, you have room for a controlled, perfectly safe response. Just like that car, your mind needs a buffer, a space between a stimulus and a response to avoid lurching forward into a knee-jerk, bad reaction. Because without that mental braking system, our minds literally just move on autopilot. And this automatic sequence is the source of so much of our everyday suffering. An event happens, say a loud sound or a weird comment from a coworker. Immediately we jump to an automatic interpretation based on our old habits. And then boom, we have a knee-jerk reaction. Before you even know it, you aren't responding to reality anymore. You are just reacting to the habitual story your mind spun up. Let's move to the mindful approach and see how this builds differently. An event happens, but this time, instead of automatically interpreting it, there is a pause, a moment for noticing. You might think, my shoulders are tightening up. That simple noticing creates a gap. And you know what lives in that gap? Choice. You get to choose how to act, which leads to a thoughtful response rather than a wild reaction. That one little pause literally rewires the entire sequence of your day. Now, I know a lot of people assume the whole goal here is to never, ever get distracted, to achieve some perfectly blank, clear mind. But honestly, scratch that. The reality is that return is way more important than perfection. Your attention is gonna wander. That is completely 100% normal. The practice isn't about proving you can be perfectly focused. It's about noticing the distraction and choosing to come back. Think of physical exercise. One single push-up doesn't transform your body, but the repeated effort builds serious capacity. Every time you return your focus, you're basically doing a mental push-up. Distraction isn't a failure at all. It's literally the equipment you use to train. Over time, this kind of training entirely shifts your relationship with your own experience. Instead of being completely fused with every single passing thought, you create separation, but without suppression. It's kind of like living in an old house. If every single creak and groan demands your full attention, you're never going to get any sleep. But if you hear a creak and can simply say, "Oh, that's just the house settling," you are no longer ruled by it. You learn to hear the noise without actually becoming the noise. So, how do we actually build this in a practical sense? Let's look at where these show up in real life. Meditation is the laboratory. It creates this structured, controlled environment for observation by dialing down the outside noise. Imagine taking a glass of really muddy water and just setting it down on a table. You don't fight the mud, you don't try to push it down, you just stop stirring. Over time, the particles settle out and the water gets crystal clear. Meditation lets you sit still so you can finally see the natural patterns of your own mind. Now, if meditation is the laboratory, mindfulness is the field. It's taking that hard-won clarity from the muddy water experiment and actually using it out when life gets messy. Imagine getting a deeply frustrating text message. We've all been there, right? Mindfulness is the portable skill that helps you notice your chest getting tight or that overwhelming urge to furiously type an all-caps reply. Because you've already studied your mind in the laboratory, you catch that irritation early in the field, long before you hit send on a text you'll definitely regret. When we compare how these two stack up, it's pretty clear they aren't rivals. They're really just different settings on the exact same system. Meditation is usually time-bound, it uses a chosen anchor, like your breath, and it builds your underlying mental capacity. Mindfulness, on the flip side, can happen literally anytime. It works with whatever is present in the moment, and it actively uses that capacity you've been building. So they differ in intensity and context, sure, but they are absolutely equal in value. One just deepens the other. And we absolutely need both, especially when the storm hits. When feelings are mild, anyone can seem mindful. But think about what happens when emotions run hot. Strong emotions violently compress that space between stimulus and response. Your brain starts screaming, act now, fix it now, defend now, escape. Meditation and mindfulness are crucial right here because they force that missing mental space back open. They aren't going to erase the storm, but they will for sure help you keep your footing so you don't get completely swept away by it. So let's summarize their core functions. Meditation trains the capacity in a focused, quiet setting. Mindfulness expresses that capacity throughout the chaos of life. But simply, meditation helps you see more clearly, and mindfulness helps you live more clearly. And the beautiful thing is, they overlap constantly. A quiet moment of awareness during your morning walk, that's mindfulness. But a highly mindful sitting session, that's meditation. Together, they team up to restore the space we so desperately need. If you take away just one thought from our explainer today, let it be this. Meditation gives you the view. Mindfulness gives you the carryover. That is exactly why they are inseparable in practice, but distinct in meaning. You build the view in those quiet, dedicated moments, and then you carry it over into the messy, complicated, beautiful reality of your everyday life. Which brings us to the most important question of all. Now that you have the view, and you understand how this mental engine actually works, what will you carry over into your day today? Think about it. That next email you open, that next conversation you have, or just the next quiet moment you find yourself in, the space is there, just waiting for you to use it. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Go out there, steer your flashlight, and I'll catch you next time.